The Zephyrian council chamber buzzed with nervous energy as Ambassador Veltar adjusted his crystalline sensors. The emergency session had been called after the most disturbing intelligence reports in their species' thousand-year history. Around the circular platform, representatives from 47 different civilizations waited in tense silence. "Fellow beings," Veltar began, his voice carrying through the chamber's translation matrix. "We gather today to discuss a threat unlike any we have encountered, a species that defies every law of warfare, every principle of civilization, every understanding we have of intelligent life." High Counselor Zithara, her serpentine form coiled elegantly around her hover throne, raised a scaled appendage. "Ambassador, surely you exaggerate. We have dealt with aggressive species before. The Corvan Empire, the Stellar Dominion, even the machine consciousness of the Nexus Collective." Veltar's optical stalks dimmed with what his species expressed as grave concern. "Honored Counselor, what I am about to share will challenge everything we believe about warfare, about survival, about the very nature of intelligence itself." The chamber fell silent as holographic displays materialized above each delegation. The images showed a blue-green world orbiting a yellow star in a previously unremarkable system, designated as Sol 3. "The species calls itself human," Veltar continued. "When our deep space reconnaissance drones first detected their transmissions 3 solar cycles ago, we classified them as a developing civilization. Chemical rockets, primitive nuclear technology, barely managing to establish permanent settlements beyond their home atmosphere. The Galactic Threat Assessment Protocol rated them at Level 2 on the Civilization Advancement Scale." Murmurs rippled through the assembly. Level 2 civilizations were typically granted observer status and left alone to develop naturally over several millennia. However, Veltar's tone grew darker. "Our assessment was catastrophically incorrect." The holographic displays shifted, showing massive space battles unlike anything in the galactic database. Ships moved in impossible formations, executing maneuvers that should have liquefied any organic crew. Weapons fired at rates that suggested either complete disregard for energy conservation or power systems beyond current understanding. Counselor Thrix of the Mechanical Assembly processed the data through his quantum consciousness. "These tactical patterns make no logical sense. No species would sacrifice ships at such rates for minimal territorial gain. That, honored Counselor, is where you are wrong." The images revealed scenes that sent shockwaves through the assembled representatives. Human crews, clearly visible through damaged hull sections, continuing to operate weapon systems even as their ships vented atmosphere. Soldiers fighting in conditions that would instantly kill most known species. Most disturbing of all, groups of humans deliberately sacrificing themselves to save others, with no apparent tactical advantage. "Impossible," whispered Ambassador Yael of the Peaceful Consortium. "No intelligent species would waste resources in such a manner." "That is what we believed," Veltar replied. "Our first contact team approached Sol 3, expecting to find a civilization on the brink of collapse. Instead, we discovered something far more terrifying." The display showed a Zephyrian exploration vessel, sleek and elegant, approaching Earth's moon. What happened next defied explanation. Within minutes of detecting the alien craft, the human military had scrambled response vessels that shouldn't have existed according to their technological assessments. Their reaction time was impossible, Veltar explained. Most species required days or weeks to organize a response to first contact. The humans had armed ships intercepting our vessel within their equivalent of 2 hours. The footage continued, showing the first diplomatic exchange. The Zephyrian contact team, following standard protocols, had transmitted peaceful intentions and offered to share beneficial technologies in exchange for cultural and scientific information. The human response had been swift and shocking. "We know who you are," came the translated voice of a human military commander. "We've been tracking your scout ships for months. Our answer is simple. Leave our space immediately, or we will remove you." Counselor Zithara's scales rippled with confusion. "Tracking our ships? Impossible. Our stealth technology is centuries ahead of their capabilities. That is what we believed as well, Veltar said grimly. We were wrong about everything. The display showed human vessels, crude by galactic standards but moving with purpose and coordination, that suggested advanced tactical systems. When the Zephyrian ship attempted to withdraw as requested, human vessels surrounded it in a formation that military analysts still couldn't fully understand. They demanded to know why we were observing their world without permission, Veltar continued. When our captain explained that advanced species traditionally monitor developing civilizations for their own protection, the human response was, he paused, his optical stalks focusing on the assembled delegates. They laughed. The word hung in the air like a toxin. Laughter in the face of superior technology was not just unusual, it was unprecedented in galactic history. The human commander then said something that our xenopsychologists are still analyzing. Protection? From what? If there's something out here dangerous enough that you think we need protection, then we need to know about it so we can prepare to fight it. Low-frequency vibrations of distress emanated from the insectoid hive mind representative. They spoke of fighting unknown threats? Without any knowledge of their capabilities or numbers? It gets worse, Veltar said. When we attempted to explain that some cosmic threats were beyond any single species to handle, requiring cooperation and the wisdom of older civilizations, the human commander's response was immediate. Then we'll find a way to fight them anyway. That's what humans do. The chamber erupted in what could generously be called concerned discussion, and more accurately described as barely contained panic. Representatives from predator species, prey species, hive minds, and individual consciousnesses all shared the same reaction: complete incomprehension. Commander Cass of the warrior caste of Vex stood, his battle-scarred exoskeleton gleaming under the chamber lights. Ambassador, with respect, one conversation does not constitute a threat to galactic civilization. Many young species display bravado when first encountering the wider universe. Veltar's response was to display new footage. Commander Cass, that was our assumption as well. However, what we discovered next changed everything. The new images showed human industrial capabilities that defied every model of technological development. Massive production facilities that could construct space-worthy vessels in timeframes that seemed impossible. More disturbing still, evidence of rapid militarization across their entire planetary surface. Within one solar rotation of our first contact, Veltar explained, human industrial output increased by 400%. They began construction of defensive installations throughout their solar system. Most shocking of all, they started developing weapons specifically designed to counter technologies they had only just learned existed. The display showed human engineers reverse engineering Zephyrian shielding technology from sensor readings alone. Scientists working around the clock to understand alien metallurgy. Military strategists developing tactics to fight enemies they had never seen. This is impossible, stated Dr. Lorth of the Academic Collective. No species can advance at such a rate without destroying themselves. The social, economic, and psychological pressures alone should have caused their civilization to collapse. Yet it did not, Veltar replied. Instead, something remarkable happened. When faced with the knowledge that hostile alien species might exist, humanity did not fragment. They did not retreat into isolationism. They did not seek to negotiate their safety. He paused for effect. They united. New images showed scenes from across Earth, ancient enemies putting aside conflicts to face a potential common threat. Resources being shared between nations that had been at war for generations. Scientists from every human nation working together on projects that would have been considered fantasy just months before. In the span of 2 solar rotations, Veltar continued, humanity transformed from a fractured species fighting over limited resources to a unified force with a single purpose, preparing for war against an enemy they knew virtually nothing about. The implications hit the assembled delegates like a quantum pulse. Ambassador Jorik, of the Peaceful Federation, stood slowly, Are you suggesting that the mere possibility of external threat caused this species to overcome millions of years of evolutionary conditioning toward tribal conflict? I am not suggesting it, Veltar said. I am stating it as observed fact. The chamber fell into stunned silence as the full horror of the situation became clear. Every known species followed predictable patterns when encountering superior technology and potential threats. They sought protection, negotiated, or retreated. None had ever responded with immediate preparation for war against unknown enemies. Counselor Zethara was the first to voice what they were all thinking. Ambassador, what happened when your team attempted to establish normal diplomatic relations? Veltar's optical stalks dimmed further. The humans were polite, but firm. They appreciated our offer of technological exchange, but declined. When asked why, their representative said something that still haunts our xenopsychology department. He activated the audio recording. We appreciate the offer, came a calm human voice. But we prefer to develop our own technology. That way, when we need to fight you, we'll understand exactly how our weapons work. The silence that followed was broken only by the soft humming of life support systems. The casual assumption that future conflict was inevitable, delivered without hostility or emotion, was perhaps the most disturbing aspect of all. When? Asked Commander Cass, his warrior's instincts recognizing something his intellect struggled to process. Not if. When? Veltar confirmed. That is how they think. They do not plan for the possibility of conflict. They assume conflict is inevitable and prepare accordingly. High Counselor Zethara's scales had gone pale. What did your team do? What any rational beings would do. They retreated to a safe distance and began long-term observation. What they discovered over the following lunar cycles has led us to call this emergency session. The holographic display shifted to show human space expanding at an alarming rate. Mining operations on asteroids. Construction of massive orbital installations. Most terrifying of all, the development of weapons that could theoretically threaten established galactic powers. In the time we have been observing them, Veltar said, humanity has gone from barely leaving their planet to establishing permanent settlements throughout their solar system. They have developed energy weapons, advanced shielding, and what our analysts believe to be crude but effective faster-than-light communication. Dr. Lorth's academic composure finally cracked. Impossible! Such advancement requires thousands of years. The social evolution alone, they did not evolve, Veltar interrupted. They adapted. When faced with external pressure, they changed everything about themselves, except their fundamental nature. And that nature, honored delegates, is what brings us here today. The chamber's attention focused entirely on the Zephyrian ambassador as he prepared to deliver the conclusion that would change galactic civilization forever. Humanity does not fight to survive, he said quietly. Humanity survives to fight. Every interaction we have observed, every social structure they have developed, every technological advancement they have made, serves a single underlying purpose: becoming more effective at warfare. The holographic display showed human children in educational facilities, learning advanced mathematics and physics, not for pure knowledge, but to better understand weapon systems. Artists creating works that inspired military recruitment. Engineers designing tools that could be rapidly converted to military applications. They are a species that has evolved warfare into an art form, Veltar continued. Not mindless aggression, not simple territorial expansion, but warfare as a creative, adaptive, constantly evolving expression of their fundamental nature. Commander Cass, veteran of 100 battles, stood rigid with something approaching fear. Ambassador, what are you recommending? Veltar looked around the chamber, at representatives of the most advanced civilizations in known space. Honored delegates, after extensive analysis, our xenopsychology teams have reached a unanimous conclusion. Humanity represents an existential threat to galactic civilization, not because of their current capabilities, but because of what they will inevitably become. The display showed projections of human expansion based on observed development rates. Within a few centuries, they would have technology rivaling any galactic power. Within a millennium, they would likely surpass it. More disturbing, Veltar added, is their approach to other species. They do not seek to dominate or control. They seek to understand weaknesses, study tactics, and develop counters. They view every interaction as intelligence gathering for future conflicts. Ambassador Yael of the Peaceful Consortium trembled. Surely they can be reasoned with? Every species can be reasoned with. Veltar's response was to play another recording. We hope for peace, came a human voice, calm and sincere. But we prepare for war. If peace is possible, we will pursue it with the same dedication we apply to everything else. But if war comes, we will be ready. We will always be ready. The recording ended, leaving the chamber in contemplative silence. The question before us, Veltar said finally, is not whether humanity will eventually pose a threat to galactic civilization. Based on all our observations, that outcome is inevitable. The question is what we do with that knowledge. High Counselor Zithara spoke for the assembled delegates. What options do we have? 1. Options. 1. Veltar's optical stalks focused on each delegation in turn. 3 possibilities present themselves. First, we could attempt preemptive action while they are still confined to their home system. Murmurs of discussion rippled through the chamber. Second, we could attempt to guide their development, hoping to instill more peaceful values before they become capable of interstellar expansion. More discussion. Slightly more hopeful in tone. Third, Veltar said quietly, we could do nothing, and hope that when they inevitably reach the stars, they will choose to be our allies, rather than our conquerors. The silence that followed was heavy with the weight of civilizational responsibility. Commander Cass was the first to speak. Ambassador, what would your military analysts recommend? Veltar's response chilled the chamber. Our military analysts refuse to plan operations against humanity. When pressed, they explained that any conflict with humans would not be a war in any sense we understand. It would be a learning experience for them, and an extinction event for us. The implications hung in the air like a toxic cloud. They learn from everything, Veltar continued. Every interaction, every observation, every piece of data becomes part of their understanding of how to fight whatever they encounter next. A war against humanity would only make them more effective at warfare. Dr. Lorth spoke quietly. And the second option? Guiding their development? Our xenopsychologists believe it would be impossible, Veltar replied. Humanity's warlike nature is not a flaw to be corrected or a phase to be outgrown. It is the fundamental characteristic that has allowed them to survive and thrive in a universe that has tried repeatedly to exterminate them. New images appeared showing Earth's history. Mass extinction events that had eliminated 95% of all life. Ice ages that should have ended all civilization. Diseases that had killed hundreds of millions. Disasters, both natural and artificial, that would have destroyed any other species. Each time, Veltar explained, they not only survived but emerged stronger, more adaptable, more prepared for the next threat. They are a species forged by constant adversity into something unlike anything else in the galaxy. The chamber digested this information in stunned silence. Which brings us to the third option, Veltar continued, doing nothing and hoping for the best. Ambassador Yael leaned forward. Surely that is the most logical choice. If they are as dangerous as you suggest, provoking them would be catastrophic. Perhaps, Veltar agreed. But consider this. Our projections indicate that within 500 years, humanity will have the technological capability to eliminate every other sapient species in the galaxy if they choose to do so. The question is not whether they will have that power, but what they will do with it. The weight of potential extinction settled over the assembled delegates like a suffocating blanket. High Counselor Zithara spoke slowly. Ambassador, what is your personal recommendation? Veltar was quiet for a long moment before responding. Honored Counselor, after extensive analysis, I have reached a conclusion that may seem counterintuitive. I believe our only hope for survival is to make ourselves useful to humanity. The chamber erupted in shocked discussion. Not as subjects or vassals, Veltar clarified, but as valuable allies. Humanity respects strength and competence. If we can demonstrate that we are more valuable as partners than as conquest, we may survive what is coming. Commander Cass nodded slowly. A warrior's logic. Better to fight alongside them than against them. Precisely, Veltar agreed. But that requires us to acknowledge some uncomfortable truths about ourselves and about them. The holographic display shifted to show comparative analyses of human and galactic civilizations. In raw intellectual capacity, humans are not exceptional, Veltar explained. In physical capabilities, they are average at best. In technological advancement, they currently lag behind most galactic civilizations by centuries. He paused for effect. However, in adaptability, determination, and what they call creative problem-solving, they have no equal. When humans encounter a problem they cannot solve, they do not accept defeat. They change the fundamental parameters of the problem until it becomes solvable. New images showed human scientific breakthroughs achieved through methods that violated established research protocols. Military victories won through tactics that no other species would have considered. Survival in environments that should have been instantly lethal through innovations that bordered on miraculous. Most importantly, Veltar continued, humans do not simply learn from their failures. They learn from potential failures. They study hypothetical scenarios and develop responses to threats that may never materialize. This allows them to adapt to new situations with a speed that appears almost precognitive. Dr. Lorth spoke thoughtfully. You are suggesting that humanity's greatest strength is not what they know, but how quickly they can learn what they need to know. Exactly, Veltar confirmed. And that ability extends to learning how to defeat their enemies. Every piece of information we share with them, every technology we demonstrate, every tactical doctrine we employ, becomes part of their arsenal for future conflicts. The terrifying implications were becoming clear to everyone in the chamber. So what do we do? Asked Ambassador Yael. Veltar's optical stalks focused intently on the assembled delegates. We make a choice that no galactic civilization has ever had to make before. We choose to trust a species that considers warfare to be the highest expression of intelligence and creativity. The silence that followed was broken only by the soft humming of life support systems and the occasional nervous movement of various aliens processing this information. The alternative, Veltar said quietly, is to become extinct. Because whether we act or not, whether we cooperate or resist, humanity will continue to grow, to learn, and to prepare for whatever comes next. The only question is whether we will be standing beside them when they face that future, or whether we will be remembered only as a cautionary tale. They tell their children about the civilizations that were too afraid to take the risk of friendship. As the session concluded, and delegates began to file out, each lost in their own species' particular form of contemplation, one thought echoed through every mind present. The galaxy was about to change forever, and none of them had any idea what that change would bring. 6 months after the emergency session, Admiral Korthak, of the Vanguard Fleet, received orders that filled him with deep unease. The Galactic Council had decided on a middle course regarding humanity carefully monitored contact, designed to assess their true intentions while maintaining strict protocols to prevent any technology transfer that might accelerate their development. As his flagship, the inexorable Dawn, approached the edge of the Sol system, Korthak reviewed the mission parameters once more. Make contact. Establish communications. Assess threat levels. Share nothing of value. Report back with recommendations. Simple in theory. But Korthak had read Ambassador Veltar's reports, and nothing about humanity seemed simple. Admiral, reported his tactical officer, Commander Zeth, we are detecting multiple energy signatures throughout the system. The humans have been busy, The main display activated, showing a tactical overview that made Korthak's primary heart skip several beats. Where intelligence reports had indicated a primitive solar system with minimal infrastructure, he now saw a network of installations that would have been impressive for a species twice humanity's age. "Impossible," whispered his science officer, Dr. Yilthen. "These readings indicate permanent habitation on 7 different planetary bodies, massive orbital construction projects, and what appears to be a defensive grid that spans the entire system." Korthak studied the display with the experienced eye of someone who had fought in 3 galactic wars. "Commander Zeth, what is your assessment of their defensive capabilities?" The tactical officer's response was delayed, which was concerning in itself. "Sir, I am having difficulty categorizing their systems. The technology appears to be a hybrid of principles I recognize and methodologies that are unusual." Before Korthak could respond, his communications officer called out in alarm. "Admiral, we are being hailed on multiple frequencies simultaneously. The transmission is coming from 17 different locations throughout the system. This was unprecedented. Most species required days to coordinate a system-wide response. Humanity had done it instantly. Put them through." The main screen divided into multiple sections, each showing a different human face, male and female, various ages and skin tones, but all sharing the same alert, calculating expression that Korthak was beginning to recognize as typically human. "Unknown vessel," came a voice from the central figure, a human female with silver hair and eyes that seemed to catalog everything they saw. "You are entering sovereign human space. State your purpose and intentions." Korthak activated the universal translator and responded according to protocol. "I am Admiral Korthak of the Galactic Federation. We come seeking peaceful dialogue and mutual understanding." There was a pause that lasted exactly 3.7 seconds. Korthak realized they were conferring amongst themselves faster than his ship's computers could track. "Admiral Korthak," replied the silver-haired human, "we appreciate your peaceful intentions. However, we have several questions before we can proceed." This was already deviating from every first contact protocol in the galactic database. Newly contacted species were supposed to be in awe of superior technology, not conducting interrogations. "First," the human continued, "how long have you been observing our system? Second, how many ships do you have in the region? Third, what specific information are you seeking? And fourth, what can you tell us about the political situation in the galaxy that might affect our safety?" Korthak felt his confidence evaporating. Each question demonstrated a level of paranoid competence that suggested these humans had been preparing for this moment far longer than should have been possible. "Respectfully," Korthak replied, choosing his words carefully, "such detailed information is not typically shared during initial contact. Perhaps we could begin with basic cultural exchange and proceed from there." The humans exchanged glances that spoke volumes. The silver-haired woman nodded to someone off-screen, and suddenly Korthak's tactical displays lit up with alarm indicators. "Admiral," called Commander Zeth, "we are being actively scanned by multiple high-energy sensors. They are mapping our entire ship." Before Korthak could respond, the human woman spoke again. "Admiral, we have just completed a comprehensive analysis of your vessel. We note several weapon systems that could sterilize planetary surfaces, defensive shields capable of withstanding stellar-level energy outputs, and faster-than-light communication systems that suggest a larger fleet presence in the region." The casual mention of capabilities that should have taken years for a primitive species to identify sent chills through the bridge crew. "Given these observations," the human continued, "we find your claims of peaceful intentions somewhat difficult to accept. Would you care to explain why a peaceful diplomatic mission requires enough firepower to destroy our entire civilization?" Korthak realized he was in completely uncharted territory. No first contact scenario had ever prepared him for dealing with a species that could instantly analyze advanced technology and immediately question the motives behind its deployment. "Our weapons are standard defensive systems," he replied truthfully. We do not know what threats we might encounter in unexplored space. Unexplored? Another human voice, male this time, with a tone that suggested dangerous amusement. Admiral, your people have been conducting surveillance of our system for over a year. We have tracking data on 47 separate reconnaissance missions. How do you define unexplored? The bridge fell silent. Intelligence had assured him that human sensor technology was centuries behind what would be needed to detect cloaked Federation ships. Dr. Yilthin leaned over to whisper. Admiral, it appears our intelligence regarding their capabilities was severely underestimated. The silver-haired human seemed to notice the disruption. Admiral, are you receiving new information? Please, take your time to consult with your crew. We understand that first contact protocols can be complex. The casual understanding of their situation was somehow more unsettling than outright hostility would have been. Korthak muted the communication channel and turned to his officers. Status report. How is this possible? Commander Zeth's tactical analysis was grim. Sir, their sensor technology appears to be based on completely different principles from anything in our database. Instead of single high-powered arrays, they are using thousands of smaller sensors networked together in real time. The computational power required to coordinate such a system should be beyond their capabilities. Unless, Dr. Yilthin added quietly, they have developed artificial intelligence systems more advanced than our projections indicated. Korthak reactivated the communication channel. We apologize for the delay. You are correct that we have been observing your system, but only to ensure that our arrival would not be disruptive to your development. Development toward what? Asked a third human voice. This one female, with dark skin, and an expression that suggested she already knew the answer. Development toward galactic citizenship, Korthak replied, realizing how weak it sounded. I see, the silver-haired woman said. And this galactic citizenship involves being observed without consent. This, then approached by heavily armed vessels whose crews have been instructed to reveal as little as possible about the galaxy we are supposedly being prepared to join. The precise summary of his mission parameters left Korthak speechless. Either these humans were remarkably perceptive, or they had intelligence sources he knew nothing about. Admiral, the male voice spoke again. Perhaps we could make this conversation more productive. We are willing to engage in dialogue, but we prefer honest communication. We know you represent a confederation of species vastly more advanced than ourselves. We know you possess technology that could eliminate us without effort. We also know that you are here because something about humanity concerns your leadership. The casual acknowledgement of their own vulnerability, combined with obvious preparation for the conversation, created a cognitive dissonance that Korthak struggled to process. What we would like to know, the dark-skinned woman continued, is what specific aspect of our development has prompted this visit, and what you need from us to ensure that our future expansion into space proceeds in a manner acceptable to galactic civilization. Dr. Yilthin transmitted a private message to Korthak. Admiral, they are negotiating from a position of acknowledged weakness, while simultaneously demonstrating capabilities that suggest that weakness may be temporary. Korthak made a decision that violated his orders but seemed necessary for the success of the mission. Very well. Your species has attracted attention because your development rate and your approach to problem-solving are unusual. Unusual how? Asked the silver-haired woman. Most species require millennia to advance from planetary to interplanetary civilization. You have accomplished this in decades. Most species, when faced with superior technology, seek protection or guidance. You immediately began developing counters to technologies you had never encountered. The humans exchanged glances again. The male voice spoke first. And this concerns galactic civilization because? Because, Korthak said, abandoning protocol entirely. You think like a military force, not like a civilization. The silence that followed lasted exactly 7.2 seconds. When the silver-haired woman responded, her tone had changed subtly. Admiral, That is an interesting perspective. Would you be willing to elaborate? Korthak realized he had crossed a line, but there was no going back. Most species develop technology to improve quality of life, explore the universe, or enhance understanding. Every technological advancement your species has made can be adapted for military purposes. Your art celebrates conflict. Your entertainment glorifies warfare. Your educational systems teach strategic thinking as a fundamental skill. And this makes us dangerous? The dark-skinned woman asked. It makes you unprecedented, Korthak replied. We do not know what to expect from a species that has evolved warfare into what appears to be a fundamental expression of creativity and problem-solving. The humans were silent for nearly 20 seconds. When they spoke again, it was the male voice, and his tone was carefully neutral. Admiral, we appreciate your honesty. In the interest of reciprocal candor, we should tell you that we have been aware of galactic civilization for longer than you might think. Korthak felt his secondary heart stop entirely. Our deep space monitoring stations have been tracking interstellar traffic for several years. We have identified at least 12 distinct technological signatures suggesting different species or political entities. We have observed what appears to be commercial traffic, military patrols, and scientific expeditions. The implications hit Korthak like a plasma blast. How? We built our observation network specifically to detect visitors, the silver-haired woman explained. It seemed logical that if life had evolved elsewhere, some of it would eventually become spacefaring. We wanted advance warning of contact. Dr. Yilthan's transmission was frantic. Admiral, this suggests a level of strategic thinking that borders on prescient paranoia. Changzhen Renjin. More importantly, the dark-skinned woman continued, we have been analyzing the patterns of galactic civilization based on observed traffic flows, technological signatures, and behavioral patterns. What have you concluded? Korthak asked, though he dreaded the answer. That galactic civilization is peaceful, stable, and completely unprepared for asymmetric conflict, the male voice replied. Your ships are powerful, but inflexible. Your communication protocols prioritize consensus over rapid decision-making. Your first contact procedures assume that newly discovered species will be either awed or intimidated by superior technology. The casual dissection of galactic civilization's strategic weaknesses was delivered with the tone one might use to discuss weather patterns. Admiral, the silver-haired woman said, we believe there may have been some misunderstanding about humanity's fundamental nature. How so? Korthak managed. Your people seem to view our military capabilities as a threat to galactic peace. This suggests you misunderstand what we are preparing to fight. What are you preparing to fight? Dr. Yilthan asked before Korthak could stop him. The humans exchanged another series of rapid glances. The male voice answered, everything else. The simple statement hung in the space between the ships like a dark star, warping everything around it. Explain, Korthak said quietly. Admiral, consider the mathematical probabilities, the dark-skinned woman began. In a galaxy containing billions of stars and planets, life has evolved multiple times. Intelligence has emerged in dozens of species. These species have achieved interstellar travel and established peaceful coexistence. She paused for effect. This is statistically impossible unless certain assumptions are correct. What assumptions? Korthak asked, though he was beginning to suspect the answer. Either galactic civilization represents the first successful cooperative phase in this galaxy's history, or it represents the survivors of previous phases that were significantly less cooperative. The logic was flawless and terrifying. We believe, the silver-haired woman continued, that galactic civilization exists in its current form because something eliminated all the species that could not or would not cooperate peacefully. Commander Zeth transmitted urgently. Admiral, they are suggesting that galactic civilization has been artificially selected for pacifism. Furthermore, the male voice added, we believe that whatever eliminated the non-cooperative species is still out there, and that it is only a matter of time before it returns or is encountered again. Korthak realized that humanity had reached a conclusion that galactic philosophers had debated for millennia. The Fermi solution. Where were all the aggressive, expansionist species that probability suggested should exist? You think something is coming, Korthak said. We know something is coming. The dark-skinned woman replied. The universe does not permit long-term stability. Every ecosystem eventually faces disruption. Every civilization eventually encounters existential threats. The question is not whether these threats will emerge, but whether we will be ready when they do. And humanity is preparing for threats that may never materialize? Humanity is preparing for threats that will inevitably materialize, the silver-haired woman corrected. That is what survival means. Dr. Yilthen transmitted privately. Admiral, their logic is sound. If galactic civilization has been stable for thousands of years, it is likely because destabilizing forces have been eliminated or contained. But containment is never permanent. Korthak made another decision that violated his orders. What would you need from us to be adequately prepared? The humans went silent for a full minute. When they responded, their answer changed everything. Nothing, said the male voice. But we might be able to offer something to you. What could you possibly offer to civilizations thousands of years more advanced? Korthak asked. Experience, the silver-haired woman replied. Every species in galactic civilization has evolved in a peaceful environment. When the next real threat emerges, you will have no idea how to fight it. And you do? We have never stopped fighting, the dark-skinned woman said simply. Every generation of humanity has faced existential threats. We have developed systematic approaches to surviving and overcoming impossible odds. When the galaxy faces its next crisis, you will need people who know how to win wars, not just maintain peace. The offer hung between them like a bridge across an abyss. Admiral, the silver-haired woman said, we would like to propose an alternative to your current mission parameters. What alternative? Instead of trying to determine whether humanity poses a threat to galactic civilization, help us prepare galactic civilization for the threats that are coming. Korthak looked around his bridge at officers who had spent their careers maintaining peace, not preparing for war. How? Exchange information, the male voice replied. We will share everything we know about warfare, tactics, and survival. In return, you share everything you know about galactic technology, politics, and potential threats. That would violate every non-interference directive in Federation law, Korthak said. Admiral, the dark-skinned woman said quietly, when the next galactic crisis arrives, those directives will not save a single life. Dr. Yilthen transmitted. Admiral, they are asking us to help them become more dangerous, to ensure they can protect us from something even more dangerous. Commander Zeth added. Sir, their logic assumes that greater threats exist, but if they are wrong, we would be creating the very threat we seek to prevent. Korthak stared at the human faces on his screen, seeing something that had not existed in galactic civilization for 1,000 years. Warriors who understood that peace was not the absence of conflict, but the temporary victory over forces that never stopped trying to destroy everything worth protecting. I need to consult with my superiors, Korthak said finally. Of course, the silver-haired woman replied. But Admiral, consider this. Every day you spend debating whether to trust us is another day we spend preparing to survive without you. As the communication ended and Korthak's ship withdrew to a safe distance, the Admiral realized that first contact had not gone according to any plan. Instead of assessing whether humanity was a threat, he had discovered that humanity might be the only thing standing between galactic civilization and threats that peaceful species could not even imagine. The question now was whether the galaxy was brave enough to accept help from the very species it feared might destroy it. 2 years after Admiral Korthak's first contact report sent shockwaves through the Galactic Council, Professor Zelith of the Xenological Institute found herself in a position she had never wanted: Special Advisor to the Emergency Defense Committee. The position existed because humanity had been right about everything. Zelith adjusted her neural interface as she reviewed the data streams from across the galaxy. 3 months ago, deep space monitors had detected something that shattered every assumption about galactic safety. A fleet of ships, unlike anything in the database, moving toward inhabited systems with clear, hostile intent. The Devourers, as they had been designated, appeared to be a machine intelligence that consumed entire civilizations to fuel its own expansion. Initial projections suggested they would reach the outer colonies within 18 months and the core worlds within 5 years. What made the situation infinitely worse was that every simulation run by the galaxy's finest military strategists reached the same conclusion. Conventional galactic forces would delay the Devourers by perhaps 6 months before being completely eliminated. Professor Zelith, came a voice behind her. She turned to see Admiral Korthak approaching, his usually pristine uniform showing signs of the stress that had consumed the military command for months. "Admiral," she replied. "Any word from the human delegation?" Korthak's expression was a mixture of respect and deep concern. "They have agreed to attend the emergency session, but their conditions are extensive, such as complete access to all galactic military databases, unrestricted communication with all member species, immediate technology sharing agreements for any innovations they develop, and full tactical command authority for any joint operations." Zelith processed the implications. "They are asking us to hand them the keys to galactic civilization in exchange for saving galactic civilization," Korthak replied. "The question is whether we can afford to trust them." Before Zelith could respond, alerts echoed through the facility. The human delegation had arrived. What emerged from the transport shuttle was not what anyone had expected. Instead of a small diplomatic team, nearly 200 humans disembarked, carrying equipment that their technicians immediately began setting up throughout the facility. "Professor Zelith? Admiral Korthak?" A human woman approached them, tall and lean with the bearing of someone accustomed to making life or death decisions. "I am General Sarah Chen, representing the United Earth Defense Force. Thank you for agreeing to coordinate response efforts." The casual assumption that cooperation was already decided spoke volumes about human confidence. "General," Admiral Korthak replied carefully, "we appreciate your assistance, but certain protocols must be observed regarding information sharing and command structure." General Chen's response was to activate a holographic display that materialized from the equipment her team had been installing. "Admiral, with respect, we do not have time for protocols. May I show you what we are facing?" The display activated, showing tactical projections that made Zelith's mind reel. The data was impossibly detailed, tracking individual Devourer vessels across multiple sectors with precision that suggested real-time surveillance. "How do you have this information?" asked Admiral Korthak. "We have been monitoring the situation since the first probe contacts 3 months ago," General Chen replied. "When your deep space sensors detected the main fleet, we had already been tracking advanced scouts for weeks." Dr. Yilthin, who had accompanied Admiral Korthak, leaned forward intently. "Impossible. Our sensor networks are the most advanced in the galaxy. Your sensor networks are optimized for detecting known technology signatures," General Chen explained. "The Devourers use completely different principles. We only detected them because we designed our systems to identify unknown threats, rather than catalog familiar ones." The implications hit Zelith like a cold wave. "You have been expecting something like this." "We have been expecting exactly this," General Chen confirmed. "Machine intelligences that consume organic civilizations are a logical evolutionary outcome. The mathematics of resource competition in a finite galaxy makes such conflicts inevitable." Admiral Korthak studied the tactical display. "What are we looking at?" "Wei, the end of galactic civilization as you know it," General Chen said bluntly, "unless we act immediately." She manipulated the display, showing simulation after simulation of conventional galactic forces engaging the Devourers. Each scenario ended the same way. Total defeat within months. "Your fleets are powerful but predictable," General Chen explained. Your tactics follow logical patterns optimized for conflicts with other peaceful species. The Devourers are not peaceful. Not logical in any sense you understand, and not constrained by the ethics that limit your strategic options. She highlighted specific examples. Your ships maintain formation integrity to prevent civilian casualties. The Devourers use that predictability to anticipate your movements. Your commanders seek to minimize losses. The Devourers use your reluctance to sacrifice units as a tactical advantage. Professor Zelith realized what she was seeing. You are saying our peaceful nature makes us vulnerable to truly hostile forces. I am saying your peaceful nature makes victory impossible using conventional approaches, General Chen corrected. Which brings us to why we are here. The display shifted to show new tactical simulations, these involving combined human galactic forces. The results were dramatically different. Human forces can do what galactic forces cannot, General Chen explained. We can accept casualties to achieve strategic objectives. We can use unpredictable tactics that sacrifice short-term advantages for long-term victory. Most importantly, we can think like the enemy. Admiral Korthak pointed to one particularly brutal simulation. You are showing scenarios where entire galactic fleets are used as decoys, while human forces conduct the actual attack. Correct. Thousands of lives would be lost. Thousands instead of trillions, General Chen replied. Admiral, this is what warfare looks like when survival is at stake. Dr. Yilthen spoke quietly. General, what you are proposing would violate every ethical principle of galactic civilization. Dr. Yilthen, what I am proposing will preserve galactic civilization so that ethical principles continue to have meaning. The stark logic was undeniable and terrifying. Professor Zelith asked the question everyone was thinking. What exactly are you asking us to do? General Chen's response was to activate another display, this one showing detailed plans for total military integration. Immediate restructuring of all galactic forces under unified command. Complete sharing of technological resources. Suspension of ethical constraints that prevent effective military action. You are asking us to become like you, Admiral Korthak said. We are asking you to let us fight for you, General Chen corrected. When the war is over, you can return to being peaceful. But right now, peace is a luxury that will get you exterminated. Before anyone could respond, alerts sounded throughout the facility. Emergency communications from across the galaxy reported the same devastating news. The Devourers had accelerated their timeline. Advanced elements were already engaging outer colonies. General Chen's team immediately shifted into a coordinated response that demonstrated everything she had been explaining. Within minutes, they had established communication with every major military installation in the galaxy, begun real-time tactical analysis of the developing situation, and started issuing orders that galactic commanders followed without question. How are you doing this? Professor Zelith asked, watching human technicians coordinate a galaxy-spanning military response from a single room. We have been planning this operation for 2 years, General Chen replied while simultaneously managing communications with a dozen different species. Every scenario, every contingency, every possible development has been analyzed and prepared for. Admiral Korthak watched his own command structure being seamlessly integrated into the human system. You have been planning to take control of galactic military forces? We have been planning to save galactic civilization, General Chen corrected. Taking control was simply the most efficient method. On the main display, real-time updates showed the situation deteriorating rapidly. Devourer forces were overwhelming colonial defenses with ease. Exactly as the simulations had predicted. Admiral, General Chen said, without looking away from the tactical displays, I need authorization for Emergency Protocol 7. What is Emergency Protocol 7? Zelith asked. Admiral Korthak's expression went ashen. Total mobilization. Every ship, every resource, every life in galactic civilization placed under military command for the duration of the crisis. "You cannot be serious," Dr. Yilthen protested. "Dr. Yilthen," General Chen replied, "look at your tactical displays. We have approximately 14 hours before the Devourer advance reaches Kepler Station. That station houses 4 million civilians who cannot be evacuated in time." The doctor looked at the projections and went silent. "However," General Chen continued, "if we implement emergency protocol 7 immediately, we can save Kepler Station and use it as a forward base for the first major counteroffensive." "At what cost?" Admiral Korthak asked. "Immediate cost. The end of galactic civilization as a peaceful federation. Long-term cost. Approximately 12 million casualties over the next 6 months. Alternative cost. Complete extinction of all organic life in the galaxy within 2 years." Professor Zelith felt the weight of civilizational survival pressing down on her. "General, if we agree to this, what guarantee do we have that human forces will relinquish control when the crisis ends?" General Chen finally looked away from her displays to meet Zelith's eyes directly. "Professor, you have no guarantees at all. You have only the choice between trusting us to protect you and facing extinction alone." The honesty was brutal and strangely reassuring. Admiral Korthak made the decision that would define the future of galactic civilization. Authorization granted. Emergency Protocol 7 is now in effect. What followed was unlike anything in galactic history. Within hours, human commanders were coordinating fleets spanning dozens of star systems. Manufacturing facilities that had produced civilian goods for centuries were retooled for military production. Species that had never considered warfare found themselves training for combat under human instruction. Most shocking of all was how willingly galactic citizens accepted the transformation. When faced with extinction, the peaceful Federation embraced its warrior protectors without hesitation. "Professor," General Chen said 3 days into the mobilization, "I want to show you something." She led Zelith to an observation deck where they could see the massive fleet assembling in Earth's orbit. Ships from every member species, their designs harmonized by human tactical doctrine, their crews trained in human combat philosophy. "This is not galactic civilization becoming human," General Chen explained. "This is galactic civilization learning what it means to fight for survival." The first major engagement came 2 weeks later at the Battle of Centauri Junction. Professor Zelith watched from the command center as human-led forces engaged a Devourer fleet that should have been unstoppable. What she witnessed redefined her understanding of warfare itself. Human commanders used galactic ships in ways their designers never intended. Fleet formations that seemed reckless proved devastatingly effective. Tactics that appeared to sacrifice ships for minimal gain created opportunities for decisive strikes that eliminated entire Devourer formations. "How are you winning?" she asked General Chen. "We are not trying to win," General Chen replied. "We are trying to learn." "Learn what?" "How they think, how they adapt, how they can be defeated." Professor Zelith realized that every engagement was simultaneously a battle and a research project. Humans were using the war itself as a laboratory to understand their enemy. "Each fight teaches us something new," General Chen explained. "Each victory gives us data for the next engagement. Each defeat shows us mistakes we will not make again." Over the following months, Professor Zelith watched this philosophy transform the war. Initial human victories led to better tactics, which led to more decisive wins, which led to innovations that allowed previously impossible strategies. Most remarkably, she watched galactic species adapt to human leadership in ways that enhanced both human tactical flexibility and alien technological capabilities. "They are not becoming human," she noted in her research logs. "They are becoming themselves, but as warriors instead of civilians." The war's turning point came 8 months after the first engagement, when human analysis revealed the Devourer's central weakness. They could not adapt to truly irrational behavior because their machine intelligence was based on logical optimization. They assume all intelligent species will act in their own best interest, General Chen explained to the assembled command staff. They cannot predict or counter strategies that deliberately accept terrible costs for uncertain gains. What followed was the most audacious military operation in galactic history. Human forces launched simultaneous attacks on 17 major Devourer installations, accepting catastrophic casualties to maintain strategic surprise. Professor Zelith watched species that had never fought sacrifice themselves with determination that rivaled humanity's own. The peaceful Federation had learned to be warriors, and warriors who fought for something greater than their own survival. The final battle took place at the edge of the galaxy, where the Devourer's main construction facilities had been hidden. Professor Zelith accompanied the fleet, wanting to witness the end of the war that had transformed everything. What she saw was not victory in any traditional sense. It was transformation. Human and galactic forces worked together with perfect coordination, each species contributing its unique strengths to strategies that none could have executed alone. The mechanical precision of machine consciousness was overwhelmed by the creative unpredictability of organic minds that had learned to think like warriors while retaining the values of peaceful beings. When the last Devourer facility was destroyed, Professor Zelith expected celebration. Instead, she found General Chen in the observation deck, staring out at the debris field that had once threatened galactic civilization. "General," she said quietly. "What happens now?" General Chen's response surprised her. "Now we prepare for whatever comes next." "You think there will be something else?" "Professor, the universe does not permit long-term stability. There will always be another threat, another challenge, another test of whether civilizations are strong enough to survive. And galactic civilization is now strong enough?" General Chen smiled, and for the first time since they had met, the expression seemed genuinely peaceful. "Professor, galactic civilization is now what it was always meant to be. Peaceful beings who are prepared to fight for that peace." In her final report, Professor Zelith wrote, "The war with the Devourers was not fought to preserve galactic civilization as it was, but to transform it into something that could survive in a universe where peace must be constantly defended. Humanity did not save us by defeating our enemies. They saved us by teaching us that we could defeat our own enemies. The galaxy is no longer a federation of peaceful species, hoping that threats will never emerge. It is an alliance of warriors who choose peace because they are strong enough to enforce it. Humanity was never our enemy. They were our teachers, preparing us for a universe that demands both wisdom and strength. And perhaps most importantly, they taught us that the greatest victory is not defeating your enemies, but becoming strong enough that your enemies choose peace instead of war." As the combined fleet returned to home space, Professor Zelith realized that first contact with humanity had been exactly what Ambassador Veltar had feared: the end of galactic civilization as they knew it. What he had not anticipated was that the new civilization would be everything the old one had hoped to become: strong enough to survive, wise enough to choose peace, and brave enough to fight for both.